What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian. Today, we are starting to dive into my lists of my various top 10s. And the one we're starting today is my finished whiskeys list. I went ahead and made kind of my house rules, my explanation that talked about what I look for in the whiskey and my criteria and all that stuff over there. So if you haven't seen that video yet, maybe you use this as a stopping point, start there, and then come back to these lists. Now, in this list for me, I do put double oaks in here, I put Tostons in here, and then just all types of finishing. So I have yet to really decide if I want to put together a double oaked or toasted specific list. Leave me a message down below if you all would find that helpful in the future. The reason I don't do that is because I feel like there's usually just a handful of double oaks that I like in a year, and toasted's not generally my thing, so it's been easier for me to kind of throw this all into one category. But it's a category I really enjoy. They're bottles that I think are just fun to dive into, and for that reason, we're gonna get into some honorable mentions. If you haven't already, jump down below, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, help me continue to grow as we're continuing on in 2025. The first whiskey on the honorable mentions would be the Bardstown Bourbon Company's Amaro Nonino. So this is one I only had on one particular occasion, but I remember it being very lively, very fun on the palate. I would have liked to revisit it, but when I asked about purchasing one or even trying it at the bar at Bardstown Bourbon Company, I was told that there wasn't any more available. So it must have been kind of shorter run. Maybe I'm too late trying to pick one of those up. It's a bottle that I don't personally own. Ton of flavor, a lot of complexity, big citrus blast. Would have loved to revisit it for the end of the year consideration, but I didn't get to, thus we're leaving it in the honorable mentions. Another one would be the Chicken Cock 10-year double oaked. Now, Sealbox has offered a few of these, a couple of 9 years that we got sent, and then we had a 10-year pick of our own. And I feel like these are just really nice, enjoyable double oaks. They're not overly challenging. They're not too heavy in the wood or anything like that. They've just been really sweet, but also has a typical double oak, good age statement on them, and they've varied in their flavor profiles. So one that I would mention here, again, as an honorable mention. We'll see if those continue on in 2025. Next, we had one that when it first came out, I was thinking this was gonna be gunning for just a really enjoyable finished whiskey of the year, and that was the Hamer rum finished one. Now, this one in the end, it just didn't have enough kind of like sticking around to it for me to put it in my overall finished whiskeys, but I remember when it first came out, really enjoyed that one. I wanted to at least mention here in the honorable mentions. That was a couple of honorable mentions. Let's dive into number 10 on the list for finished whiskeys. Number 10 on the list for me goes to the Club Marzipan pick of the Doc Swinson's Golden Hour. This is a straight rye that's finished in rum and tawny port casks. I enjoyed Doc Swinson's Golden Hour as it was. This is a 7-year product that was finished in rum and tawny port casks. And this one that we got to release for Club Marzipan, Fred Minnick's group, was a little bit older than that 7 years that it had on there, and it came in at a bit higher proof. So this one is coming in at 104 proof. And the flavors from this one, they're indulgent, they're tropical, but I think what I love the most about it is that it doesn't ask that much of you while still giving a ton of complexity. Not only that, but with the age of the product, I feel like this is just one that you can sit with, and it has so much to offer for somebody who wants to look for it, but it doesn't have a challenging flavor profile that you have to overcome in order to enjoy it. If you want to sit down and just sit and sip, you can do that. And if you want to kind of nuance some notes out there, it's going to give that to you also. That is the Doc Swinson Golden Hour Club Marzipan pick. Number 9 on the list comes from Maryland's Epic or Epoch brand. This is their Maryland style rye. It is finished in Madeira. I almost put this on my rye list, but then as I was talking to my buddy Nick, we tried to pull out anything that was finished, keep it kind of its own category. But I love this one because it is 100% Maryland rye. It's over 4 years old as a base, but has spent 2 years in Madeira casks. And I feel like the flavor coming out of this one is like raisin, date, intensified. This was an incredibly intense kind of craft whiskey for this year, but it had these really strong fig presence, this really rich maple-like note to it, juicy, oily, really unique spices, really great wood tannins. This was unusual. I didn't expect this to come out, and then ever since I tried it, I was just in love with this sort of flavor profile. So this is a really unique wild card. It's one I hadn't seen a lot of people talk about, but if you're looking for something intense and you like those kind of dark fruits, dried fruits like date, raisin, basically just hitting you like an onslaught of fruit, but have a nice kind of like honeycomb, maple linger, this Maryland Epic Epoch brand definitely an interesting one to check out. At number 8, we are moving into this Nulu. This is a toasted honey finished bourbon. I was kind of torn and going back and forth between whether I do the maple brulee barrel, whether I do this one here, but there is something that has this kind of really fresh, this really pollen-y type of honey note to it that I think is just gorgeous. This was 5 months toasted. It was 9 months in a honey barrel. Remember even when I did the taste notes on this saying, could this be my favorite Nulu finished bottle? Possibly. And come to find out, this is a really, really good one. And while it does have a lot of beautiful raw honey notes, the palate still is beautiful with well-charred oak, leather, toasted vanilla bean, and heavily cooked caramel. The linger is super long. This reminds me of a well-done mocha latte, drizzled with honey and a marshmallow on top, served out with a kiss. That is the Nulu Toasted Honey Barrel finish in 8th place. This next bottle has been one I've been thinking about ever since I've got a chance to taste it earlier this year. This is High Bank Distillery out of Ohio. This is their Midnight Cask. This is the barrel proof. Now, this is a cask strength blend of straight whiskeys. I think they're usually kind of more rye forward in their base of what they use. This one's port finished. I remember mentioning this was like drinking bourbon while eating a juicy piece of Wagyu steak. There's just something about it that is so flavorful, so sweet and saturating that I feel like that's the best way I've been able to describe this pour. It's damp, it's chewy, it's viscous, yet it isn't overly spiced and anything like that. It's like 105 proof, so it's incredibly easy to drink, but long-lasting flavors. One of my absolute favorites and one I keep coming back to this year. That is the Midnight Cask Barrel Proof. In 6th place is another bottle that I haven't been able to get out of my mind since I tried it earlier in the year. This is the first bottle that we did from Bull Run that was this year. That is a 10-year cognac finish straight bourbon. You know, sometimes you just get kind of like a cognac or a Armagnac finish bourbon that just adds more of the well-aged, antique-y, kind of perfumey-like qualities to it. And that's what happened here. And on top of what is already a nice 10-year whiskey base, I feel like you get something that has mature oak, it has leathers, it has all those kind of nice, luscious, but antique-y, perfumey-like qualities. And if you know me, that's one of the things that I like to lean towards in my pours. And I feel like the cognac finish here, it kind of just amplified that in a little bit. Even if you told me this wasn't cognac, this would be more of the kind of relaxed, antique oak type profiles that I usually like to gravitate towards. It's coming in 109 proof, so super easy to drink. Good sugars, antique oak, little dusty like. That is this Bull Run 10-year cognac finished bourbon. I don't think this is the last time you're going to see this brand show up across my lists coming up in the next couple of weeks, but it's definitely the first. This is the Nashville Barrel Company. This was really interesting. It's a straight bourbon that was aged in hickory barrels. Now, what that means is apparently they have a guy local to them where they're able to get some hickory syrup, and it's not syrup from a hickory tree. It's syrup made from the bark of a hickory tree, something like that. Not super versed in it, but basically if you were one who likes maple-like pours, maple syrup, finished pours or whatever, this has got all the intense, big sweetness that comes with it. However, it's an 8-year-old MGP bourbon at the base, and so it's got a lot of the really great, snappy characteristics that come from that, good fruits, really nice oak, but just this unique, slightly smoked, but not all that much. It's like a little bit smoky, but overall just big, sweet, mapley type of flavor that came out of this one. This one would be polarizing for people. If you're not into the sweet pours, I think it kind of teeters the line, although it is sweet forward. A really unique barrel. I was excited to pick this one, and I was excited that it just was so enjoyable that it's here on my list. This is 5th place, Nashville Barrel Company, Hickory Finished Bourbon. These next 4 are tough. They are all flavor bombs. I feel like you're going to see this next bottle show up in a handful of people's lists, whether they put it in a rye list or a finish list like I'm doing or whatever. This is the Pursuit United Double Oaked Rye. Specifically, I am talking about the barrel that we did for Sealbox. However, their base product, Pursuit United Double Oaked Rye, I think is probably the best product Pursuit United has done. They have been getting better. They've been moving on. Earlier in the year, there was an oak collection product that I had in this list consideration. But as they've gone through the year, I feel like the blends keep getting better every time they have to do a new batch. And when it comes to this, I was not the largest fan of the Pursuit United Double Oak Bourbon, but I know so many people who were. To me, the Pursuit United Double Oak Rye is where they shine. This barrel specifically is really interesting because this started off as a really good Pursuit single barrel that we were going to do, not double oaked. And then the opportunity came up as they were rolling out with the SKU for double oaked for us to go ahead and double oak it and see what it would do. It was double oaked in a Sigwin Monroe barrel for an additional bit of time. And I think that the flavors that come from this are just beautiful. I feel like it's deep, fudgy, chocolatey, a little bit perfumed, has some good kind of leather and oak characteristics, but yet still has this nice clean element to it. And that's what I liked about the double oak rye in general. I feel like it allows a lot of these nice big fruits to kind of pop. It accompanies with some spice, but then it has kind of these nice, beautiful chocolates, caramels, chocolate covered raisin, and in this case specifically like some coffee cake-like notes that really just make it a very wide pour and has a lot of flavors that you can kind of tease out and nuance. It's coming in 108 proof, so it's incredibly drinkable as well, but I feel like there's a lot of layers you can pull back if you were one who wants to do that. I can't wait to see what the guys at Pursuit do in 2025. Coming in number 4, the Pursuit United Double Oaked Rye. This next one is a bottle that when I first opened it, I wasn't sure how much I enjoyed it, but when I came back to it, and then when I continued to come back to it, it got better and better and better and better. That happens to be the 15-star Vino de Naranja 8-year. This one starts with an excellent, I believe, Kentucky bourbon base at 8 years old. I feel like that already gives you nice maturity. It drinks really enjoyably. You know that I'm a fan of 15-star. They have some really solid products, so I feel like this is a really good starting point. But the way they have Vino de Naranja in here is just fresh, it's enjoyable. I feel like it's subtle. If you didn't know it was a finished bourbon, you might not necessarily be able to pick up on it. Coming in at 102.8 proof, so again, very, very easy to drink, but very rich. And I feel like it adds these nice orange essence, orange oil notes all over the palate to what's already a really nice, oaky, comfortable bourbon. So you have lots of unique layers of fruit to it, but still incredibly drinkable. I had not had a Vino de Naranja finish like this one before. This was very close to just being my favorite finished product of the year. But I feel like there's two more that I also really, really enjoyed for different reasons. So we're gonna get into the next. That's a 15-star Vino de Naranja. I was torn for a while also, like the Maryland Epoch Rye, on where I'd place this next one in my list. I feel like a lot of people are gonna place this in their rye lists, and I maybe could have done that, but I feel good about placing it in the list that I did here with Finished. This is the Raconteur Rye. This is their Batch 2 Brazen. The folks at Woodwork Collective have been putting out some of my favorite products all year long. This collaboration with David Jennings, I feel like is really, really enjoyable. I really like Batch 1, and in some ways I like it more than this Batch 2, but this straight rye that has some Mizunara cask finishing with it as well is just such a unique rye. I feel like it has these bright notes, these lemon oil type notes. I feel like it adds, like I've said before, to the overall width of the whiskey. Tons of unique, complex spices, citrus, fruitcake come out while still having this kind of dusty like vibe to it as a rye. It's juicy, complex. There's tons of flavor you can draw out of it. This is a really good release. I look forward to seeing what happens with Batch 3, and I look forward to seeing what Woodwork Collective continues to do in the ryes, in their bourbons, in all of their products. Coming in number 1 for the finished whiskey happens to be the Sealbox 10-year Double Oaked Bourbon. Now again, if you're not familiar, I do work with the brand Sealbox. I did not have anything to do with the output or the product creation of this. However, when I first got a chance to try this, and specifically when with a little bit of water, had a buddy over, we were tasting it in the studio. When you add a little bit of water to this particular pour, it reminds me of the Parker's Heavy Char. And I think for that reason, I have just loved this bottle. Parker's Heavy Char was one of my favorite releases from a couple years ago. Mature oak notes, mature barrel char, covered in fudge. And with a little bit of water to this particular Sealbox pour, I feel like you unlock a little bit more of a layer. You get some more creamy vanilla, you get some more creamy caramel. The oak continues to kind of show itself, and I feel like it kind of cleans up a little bit, lifting a little bit from its big, thick, full profile. And it reveals layers of fruit and kind of more candy-like notes and all these different types. It adds a ton of complexity and just overall was an enjoyable, super well drinking barrel, whether you did or did not add water to it. At 130 proof, if you're one who likes the big proof, you are definitely going to get huge mouthfeel, big flavor from this without it. But with that 130 proof, I feel like that gives room that you can add a little bit of water to it, open up those notes a little bit. You can see my bottle's pretty far down, so it has opened up well in the glass without doing that. But it does give room that you can add a little bit of water to this without bringing the whiskey too far down. So there's a lot of room that you can manipulate with this to kind of find the flavor that you're looking for. But for me, these kind of old oak, leather, cigar box mixed with Tootsie Roll fudge-like notes was just a flavor I couldn't get away from just a pure enjoyment level. That said, this was a really diverse yet interesting list this year. So many great finished whiskeys. And I know there's a lot of people who are polarized by this entire category. So I'm curious to see where this category goes in upcoming years, to see if we're going to continue to see these finishing trends kind of continue on, or we're going to see them kind of close up a little bit and people gravitating more back towards straight bourbons, straight ryes, or into the double oaks and toasteds more than these finished barrels. Thanks everybody for tuning into the video. Hope it was insightful, informational. I'd love to hear from you all. What were your favorite finished whiskeys? Down in the comments below. That does it for me today, and the top finished whiskeys list will be back again another day with another list. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you all later.